tell you what, right?
Right.
Kids today. These children today.
The ragamuffins.
Right? They're soft. Not like in my day. They don't know how good they have it.
Tell us about your day.
There were very few regulations on the safety of toys.
Oh, yeah.
This is true.
There were some. You know, we didn't have lawn darts anymore because of all the people that got their eyes stabbed out with them.
Right.
A lot harder to get BB guns, but, you know, over time it's been a lot easier for young people to get real guns, so it's sort of balanced out there. But I recently purchased some Mad Balls.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've already had Mad Balls
Oh.
before. Testes, everyone. Testes. So Mad Balls were from the 80s. 1986 were what these ones came from. The original version of them was round balls with ugly faces. That was the concept.
Yeah.
It was part of that whole gross out thing. So obviously, as a boggling aficionado, Mad Balls have always been on my radar.
What if a boglin was a stress ball?
Basically, yeah. You had like a skull, a mummy, a werewolf, like a lot of traditional monsters and then a lot of gross things. And the things I had as a kid were the head popping action figures where they took the Mad Balls, made little round rubber heads, and put springs inside and stuck them on action figure bodies that, for 1986, were incredibly well made. If you actually look those things up, the level of detail and the paintwork on them is stunningly good. Like, for the time, amazing. Even by today's standards, these are, like, really detailed. But what I love about them is how dangerous they are. I recently acquired two specifically that I've been wanting to get because me and my brother had them as kids. Went to a shop in a little town called Dewsbury. A weird town, I'll tell you about that in a second. But the heads are like thick rubber with like maybe hard plastic inside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press the button on the back of the action figure. The skeleton one, if anyone's interested, and it's gonna hit the desk.
That was pretty firm.
Yeah, that actually hit the keyboard. So what I'm gonna do is I will just drop it onto the desk from a height.
That's a pretty sizable thud.
It's a sizable thud.
There's a density there, yeah.
And these things pop off like a bullet from a gun. And I am amazed at the sheer condition of these. I found them in this toy shop. They were just in a glass cabinet. None of the paint's worn. There's like maybe a bit on the like tiny little traces. But otherwise, clean as hell. And the springs are still coiled like a cobra about to strike. And I have almost shot myself in the face several times. Because the only issue with them is some of them are on a hair fucking trigger at this point. I have brushed my hand past them and they have exploded.
They're somewhat like a grenade that's been sat around and someone finds like 30 years later and it's like, oh yeah, you don't have to pull the pin out of that thing. Like if you brush too close of it, it's just gonna go off anyway.
Right? That is actually exactly, with the same level of risk and damage, exactly what it's like, Laura. So long story short, there was a shop in Dewsbury called Kiddies in Dom.
That doesn't... No, thank you.
Yeah.
Could they call it like anything else?
To be fair, it looked like at one point it might have said Kiddies Kingdom.
Oh.
But I can only assume that, like, vandals tried to come up with, like, using what material they had. They're like, okay, we've got Kiddies Kingdom on the wall. And this sign is massive, right? If you took a letter off, it'd probably, like, come up to my, like, past my knees. And I'm a tall bitch, right? But clearly they saw Kiddy's Kingdom and realised their options were very limited for mischief, so crossed way past mischief and just went over the fucking line.
Oh.
Because you can't have kiddies in dumb!
No, you can't.
You
can't.
can't.
You can't.
Oh, that town is weird. It has got a roundabout that's 3 roundabouts. It's so weird, that end of Yorkshire.
A roundabout that's 3 roundabouts.
It's like 3 roundabouts that aren't quite round. And I don't know how if you look at it, it's like...
So are they like ovoid abouts?
Yeah, it's bizarre. There is a shop with a vinyled over window. Outside of this is a sign that says Silicone Babies.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And underneath, rebirthing.
Well.
Okay.
Now, my first thought was that is a shop where they are making babies out of silicone to sling up someone,
Right.
so they can enjoy the experience of giving birth to their children again.
That makes sense. Yes, this trek.
The
Yeah, right.
reality is only slightly less creepy.
I'm assuming it's multiple offices.
I was assuming this is the, like, it's a very realistic looking baby that you have. Yeah, I can't have a baby, I'll have this one that looks a little dead-eyed, but otherwise like a baby.
Yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
that. So, like, silicone babies and rebirthing are actually related.
Okay.
The process of making a terrifyingly lifelike, uncanny valley baby is called rebirthing. Phoenix and I were looking this up
Okay.
because we had to find out what this was.
Okay, so it's the making process.
Now, you say it's for people that can't have children. That could be one reason why someone would want a reborn baby, but let's remember that it's not born, it's reborn. This is one of the most popular form of clientele is people that had babies, with had being a very operative word.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Police have broken into cars in the past after it being reported that a baby was abandoned and unconscious in one.
I recognize the emotional value this could have in the right setting and use case, but I've also come across stories on the internet of people who have real actual babies that they've been unable to, like, there's no space on the bus to bring the pram onto the bus. Oh wait, no, you've got a pram on the bus taking up the pram spot, but that's not a person in there. Could you maybe not take up the pram spot that's needed by a person with a human baby?
Yeah, you see, I misinterpreted where you were going with that.
Right.
And thought, are people getting these vinyl, most of them are vinyl, these vinyl Uncanny Valley babies made so that they can take the parent and child parking spot at the supermarket?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. If you're gonna do that, this seems like a good way to achieve that goal.
By the way, right, if you've taken the parent and child parking spot, right,
Right.
and you don't have a kid, you don't get to stare at me in the supermarket like I shouldn't be there.
It's true, because they shouldn't be there. They should be looking for a parking space.
Exactly. There is 100% crossover between transphobes and people that park in the parking spot reserved for kids without having kids. They're the kind of people that'd buy a vinyl baby.
Oh.
Anyway.
Hey, it's Podquisition.
Shrewsbury's weird.
We sometimes talk about video games here. I've played some. I bet you two have played some as well, probably.
Yeah, I heard Bono's a fan.
Yeah. I'll jump in with like a really quick one I want to mention because it's a demo for something I played this week, and I mainly want to talk about it because it has some really interesting like accessibility setting stuff that's worth like keeping an eye on. There is a demo up on Steam at the moment for a game called Stories of Blossom, and it is a really nice like watercolor art style point and click adventure game. Deliberately, like, not particularly complex in language or puzzle difficulty. It is designed to be able to be played through by children, by people with disabilities that may impact language comprehension ability, things like that. But what I wanted to note about it is a point-and-click adventure game that has been really well designed for being completely playable by sightless blind players. The default control scheme is your traditional point-and-click. You mouse over things, you click on them. There is an alternative here where you can just go left and right with the keyboard to cycle through all of the highlightable things on screen, have them described to you as audio, select the one you want to interact with, and all of the cutscenes and all of the gameplay moments feature full audio descriptions for absolutely everything. Every cutscene pauses between lines of dialogue to describe what is being shown. Every time you reach a new location, it pauses to describe to you the location you've entered. Every time you interact with a new item or person, there is an audio description can be given for, for who you're interacting with. There are really nice options like, if there are words in a sentence that are meant to be a clue for how to solve a puzzle, you can make them bigger than the other words in the sentence to help, guide people along. Just really nicely thought through accessibility stuff in there. Like, it is a game that's, clearly not for me in terms of, who it's targeting, but it is a really, ambitious little demo that, the demo's pretty short. You can finish it in, 15, 20 minutes. The game's coming out spring next year, and, that demo has me really intrigued, and I think it's going to be a game I'm going to keep pointing back to in terms of accessibility stuff going forward, because it has leapfrogged past anything else in the genre in terms of accessibility in a way that's really impressive. So, don't have much to say about it. It's a simple point and click about, a kid going on imaginary adventures, meeting all sorts of fantasy creatures, but, yeah, if you're at all interested in accessibility stuff, go check out that demo. It's really neat. What about you both? What have you been playing this week?
I am dying to hear about the games that Steph chose to play this week.
Hiya.
Because, for one, the Scorn review, but also, there's a game on your list that I can't believe anybody in current year argument would play. and I say that regardless of the year. I say current year because it doesn't matter what year you listen. You could listen to this in the past.
Yeah, you could travel back to 2009 when it was released and it'd still be questionable. But we will get to that. Later on, we can all sit down and eat lead together. But right now, let's get it out of the way. Let's talk about Scorn.
Yeah.
So I have published a review of this because, like I said last week, written video game reviews are back. And I've been enjoying getting back into it. It's really sort of gotten me into talking about video games again. And it's therapeutic to write a review of something like Scorn after you've experienced something like Scorn. A game truly worthy of its name. It is not the worst horror game I've ever played because I've played Agony. It's agony, though. It is so bad. And I realise it's got a little gaggle of fans who are angry at anyone who accurately calls this game an insulting, contemptuous waste of time. But that's what it is. I realise some people think that this game's insistence on wasting your time, on making you feel bad, on giving you just a shoddy user experience is genius. I'm sure there are, I know there are people that think that this is genius, that the game, some of the game's very worst elements are the point of the game, or it's okay because they're not the point of the game. Pick your poison there. But this game is terrible. If this game had stuck to just being a very fleshy mist,
yeah,
it would have been subpar, because what this game does is present some of the most bargain basement puzzles and dress them up with obfuscation to essentially try and trick the player into thinking they're not bargain basement puzzles. If it had stuck to that, I'd have been okay with it. I'd already come to accept that this game was an atmospheric puzzle game about taking in grisly sights rather than engage in combat. And I just accepted that before the combat happened. To give you an idea of this game's core philosophy, it's best to just explain the opening chapter, the prologue, basically. You are some guy who wakes up somewhere and does something for some reason, You're all meaty. The scenery is all meaty. It's basically, a very impressive forgery of H.R. Geiger's work is essentially what the entire design of this game is visually. But what the game does, and does this throughout, is give you puzzle pieces before you know what the puzzle is. There's, machinery to operate. There's levers to pull. None of it does anything. And there's loads of it. And especially for someone like me, who, has many concentration issues, it's almost anxiety-inducing to be given half a dozen components to a puzzle with no idea how to use them and no opportunity to use most of them because there's a starting point somewhere, and once you find it, you're going to have to remember where all the other components are. And that's the game's core challenge philosophy. Confuse the player by giving them things they can't use yet, and basically expect them to stumble on the starting thread. And then once they do that, that's when the illusion of this game being deep and meaningful with its puzzles completely evaporates. Because once you stop poking your fingers in fleshy holes and pulling slick and glistening levers and going, oh, isn't that a bit disgusting? Once you find what the starting point of this first puzzle is, you find that it's nothing more complex, nothing more original, nothing more compelling than a sliding block puzzle. And one of the worst types of sliding block puzzles, because what you're supposed to do is squint your eyes until you realise that two of them have little, very tiny pinprick blinking lights on them. One of which will be crushed, and one of which is actually used for the puzzle.
Okay, well, are they squishy, fleshy blocks?
They're essentially little round pods. They're cocoons. Some of which are attached to each other, and some of which are on their own, and you've got to move them around to make space to get one of them into position so a claw can come and grab it and take it down to the rest of the puzzle. And the rest of the puzzle is just pulling levers in sequence and basically mangling this weird mass of flesh and eyeballs. But that's what this game is like.
Yeah.
It's, oh, we're so mysterious. You figure it out. We're very complex and we're very mysterious. Now shut up, fuck off, here's a sliding block puzzle. This game is full of simple puzzles that would be shitty hacking mini-games in a real video game, presented as the actual core challenge. And then we get to the combat.
Oh, God. This looks painful.
Which I'm supposed to believe is okay, because it's not the focus of the game. It's like Silent Hill, people try and tell me.
In that you're supposed to feel powerless and weak against it. But the sense I got is that the problem with the combat comes more from it failing to be particularly well executed as opposed to deliberately making the player powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Silent Hill, it's often encouraged to avoid monsters altogether.
Right.
You can turn the radio and the light off, and the monsters can't really find you very well. You generally have space to get round them. And there are elements of this game where you don't have that space. The monsters hit hard up close and can very quickly shoot you from a surprisingly long range with projectiles. And if you try and fight them, you are in for a bad time. You have no defensive strategies whatsoever. You cannot dodge, you cannot block. You can only sprint. And turning around is really sluggish, and you don't have a lot of room to maneuver in several areas. They'll come through really tight corridors. There have been several points where I've tried to run past, but there's just not room, and they are blocking. They're just blocking me. There is a healing system, but just like with the puzzles, you get the component for it before you get the ability to use it to heal. You pick up this weird little, sea anemone looking thing, and it doesn't do anything. And then there's a bunch of combat before you get to the healing. Now, apparently reviewers have got to points, and I was almost at one point until I found a workaround, where you can get to a checkpoint with, like, barely a sliver of health because you've either fought or failed to flee, and you are just fucked.
Yeah.
You can get to a point where it's like, I can't get past this without taking damage, and I'm in checkpoint hell. It's perfectly possible for that to happen. Luckily, I was lucky enough to... I thought I was in that position, but managed to cheese it to get past the enemy that was blocking my way. But it's just horrible. And, you know, people are trying to justify it by saying, oh, it's not the focus of the game, it's like Silent Hill. But no, you have to engage with this. And if you have to focus on it as a player, then the developer should feel obliged to focus on it as well, to some degree, to at least the bare basic custodial responsibility of making sure that it's not unpleasant on the mechanical level. That it's not to the point where I don't want to play the game. I just don't want to play this game. And I got the opportunity to conclude my time with it when I was being smashed about on the floor by a big charging block of flesh and thought, fuck this. I might as well just restart from the checkpoint. So I opened the menu and got to the loading screen, the load menu, and loaded up the latest save. And that's when I found out that the game doesn't actually save checkpoints. It only saves the beginning of each act, which was at least an hour back the way I came.
Yeah.
Which meant not just like engaging with some of the worst combat I've ever experienced, but also sitting through puzzles I'd already solved. All of which, or at least many of which, have laborious animations because it involves lots of slow-moving machinery. By the way, if you die, the checkpoints are so harshly rationed out that you'll end up doing that anyway, going through a lot of the same puzzles, which isn't challenging. I don't see how that's well designed to punish the player by making them just watch the same slow, sluggish, boring animations again. Too Human is less annoying with its respawning mechanic than this.
Ouch.
Too Human.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah, you know, a game with one of the most notoriously bad punishments for dying in video game history. And I find that more bearable than what Scorn does. But anyway, I lost over an hour of progress, and again, people have tried to be like, well, that's your fault. And I'm like, yeah, on some degree it is. Because I trusted the game.
Because you started playing the game in the first place, yeah.
Well, yeah. But, you know, I trusted the video game to handle loading, checkpoints, and saving like every other video game I've ever fucking played. And yes, I should have paid attention. Yes, I should have...
You should have recognized the inherent flaws already existing in this product and thought to yourself, they're gonna fuck this up too.
Yeah, the game is so mean-spirited, and that's like what this game is. It's mean-spirited and it's full of traps. I was one hit point away from death at one point, and I've been looking at the scenery like the game sort of encourages you to do because they put so much effort into the environment. And I've been looking at sort of these snaky tendrils that look like exposed nerve endings, and then I saw this other tendril and it spat at me. And then I died. It had never introduced this thing before. It just spat at me and I died. So that's how mean-spirited this game is. It's vindictive.
So what you're saying is that, like, having H.R. Geiger-esque visual-inspired design is not enough by itself to make this not a terrible video game.
Yes. Having your only selling point be entirely the work of a man who had nothing to do with your game is probably not enough on its own. But yeah, like, you know, people have said that's my fault. Yes, I should have looked at my phone and checked the time and seen how far back the timestamp on the save file was. Yes, I'm never going to do that for any other game because I trust those games to handle it properly. But for this one, I should have. Once I reloaded it, it saved over it saved over the whole thing. There's no do-over, there's no secondary save file, there's no, it doesn't warn you, it doesn't give you a pop-up or a confirmation, it just reloads it and you are fucked. You're fucked. It's a terrible video, even without that bit. You know, this game is one of the least pleasant games I've ever played. Not in an, oh, it's meant to be visceral and you know, skeeve you out. Like, that bit is to its credit. This game is disgusting, and that's actually a positive for this. But no, the gameplay is not thematically brilliant for being just as unpleasant as its visuals. It's just unpleasant. Because I have to play it. That's the thing. The game can be an unpleasant experience, but if I've got to play it, I'm having unpleasant interactions, and that's not my idea of a valuable use of my time. So yeah, Scorn is absolutely one of the worst horror games I've played in a decade. It's contemptuous towards its player, just has a mean streak running through it, and while I am completely aware that some people think it's brilliant for everything I hate about it, I hate everything about it. Except the art style that isn't even theirs.
There's a certain type of, like, people who love pathologic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will never be one of those people.
No.
Right? And I recognize that there's something in it.
Pathologic is a terrible time.
Yeah.
I've tried playing it once. I will never play it again because it is basically everything that's designed to piss me off.
Right.
However, I have seen people play it. I've seen people talk about it. I can recognize that that game is operating on a pretty clever level.
Yeah.
Scorn is the aesthetic, the interactive aesthetic of Pathologic without any of the depth, complexity, or intrigue.
Right. Yeah, I think I would like to watch this.
Yeah.
Right? By, you know, just a straight playthrough without any confusion or something, like a speed run without trying to speed, I think is where I would land on wanting to observe this game. The visuals are very cool and fucked up looking, and I'm into all of that. But in and amongst that lay the problem for me also in sort of realizing, just on observation and based on the, like, 2-sentence description of the game from the publishers as this being a context visual-based puzzle thing. Mm-hmm. That I knew instantly once I read that I was like, oh, I'm going to get lost in this, and I don't know. There's a real risk of things not communicating to me in a way that I'm going to enjoy it. And then when you bring in that the combat both exists, is bad, and seemingly unavoidable, for me, that would completely turns this into a hard pass. But something just on a visual level is so fascinating that I'm still kind of compelled to examine it.
I was intrigued by it, but the big thing that was my, like, warning sign that, like, it probably wasn't going to be great was that it has been, like, heavily pushed in marketing during a lot of the, like, Xbox, like, look at how fancy next-gen graphics are showcases, but always in CGI trailers only focusing on, look, we've got Geiger-esque things that maybe look like penis monsters, and they never pushed gameplay. And, like, you don't push a game that hard promotion-wise and then never show gameplay, unless, like, you know that it's maybe lacking a bit of substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad game.
That's a shame.
What about you, Conrad? What have you been playing this week?
Well, alright, so I really have only played one thing, because otherwise it'd just be more Fallout 4, and it's that I don't know that I have much more to say about Fallout 4 at the moment. But this is actually related to Scorn, because it's pretty much the same kind of game, but with better combat. It's called Cryohazard. That's right. That's clever, right? Cryohazard. It's cute.
Oh, like Biohazard.
Right, like Biohazard, but Cryohazard.
Yeah. Apparently, Cryohazard is also an IPA.
Ah.
That was... All I'm getting is, like, pictures of fucking beer cans when I'm trying to look this up.
Well, that's because you're trying to look up a game made by a streamer and being sold on itch as it is a Game Boy ROM.
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
And it is a very small little game. It's a first-person point-and-click adventure in the vein of a Deja Vu or Shadowgate, but without a lot of the inventory complexity stuff. Once you pick stuff up, you don't have to select to use it. It just knows to use it. There's a point at which you get a passcode, and you don't have to enter the passcode. It just does it for you. You know, little creature comforts from that stuff that take out of the unnecessary busy work. I played it on stream Monday night with my wife, Linda, and they do a lot in 90 minutes with minimal visual abilities, I think is the way to put it. Like, the technical aspects of the Game Boy, they do a lot with how few shades of gray they have to work with, which is neat. The enemy creature designs in it are pretty horrifying. And so you wake up in a facility, and you have no memory of who you are, how you got there, but you've been cryogenically frozen for some reason. And the facility appears to be abandoned, and you explore it. And there are creepy monsters, and it consists of a few rooms, depending on an early game choice. Some of those rooms are accessible, some aren't, so it's got some replay, it's got multiple endings, and it has this hint of stuff that operates on the periphery that is pretty interesting. It's fairly well written. It's just a short little bite-sized Game Boy horror game that quite liked. And I would like to see more of this, because what it kind of sets up and establishes as being part of whatever world this is set in is intriguing. And especially for someone like me who likes gross things, cynical things, and economic things to some extent. There's something going on here that is for me. It's fun. It's creepy. It's dark. It plays very well as just a little Game Boy thing. I'm actually pretty impressed. And it, like I say, I went through the whole thing, saw what I suspect are all the endings, save one. I thought of one combination of actions that I might be able to do that hasn't been tried. But 90 minutes to get through all of that. And that's with fumbling around.
Yeah.
So not a big investment. I would say worth the time. It's pay what you want on itch.io. It's Cryohazard. Go check it out. It's neat.
Neat. I want to talk a little bit about a game I played recently that is not strictly a video game, but it's a game played using mobile phones, and, like, I want to talk about it somewhere where people will listen, because, like, I find this game really interesting in terms of how you can do narrative as game mechanics. It is a game called Alice is Missing.
Oh, I think I've heard of this. I remember this coming up at some point in years past.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of positive talk about this over the years, and I finally got a copy and had a chance to play through it. So it is a collaborative storytelling game that is all entirely played through in a real-world group text chat. You know, set up like a Facebook Messenger chat or a Discord channel or whatever, and for the 90 minutes you're playing, you just interact with each other by typing in text chat over 90 minutes. And the idea is that you're all playing various people who knew this missing girl, Alice, and this all takes place in real time over 90 minutes after you've discovered that she's missing. And there is a deck of cards that will... there's multiple ones for different times, and as this 90-minute timer goes down, every 5 or 10 minutes, a card gets turned over, and a new element of the mystery is introduced. It might be relating to a location or a suspect, and none of it is like, it's not a game about trying to solve, like, you know, this isn't like a Cluedo where you're trying to puzzle out who done it and work out the answer. It is more a case of, we are going to introduce narrative elements at just regular enough a pace that by the time you've finished, you know, talking through what you think one thing might mean, something new's been introduced to give you more to talk about. And it will naturally, over 90 or so minutes, pull together... like, I'm very impressed at how well this game pulls together to a single satisfying narrative conclusion, given that it is dealing with so many random elements, and it does give you as a player complete freedom to come up with narrative entirely of your own, unprompted. What I think it does really well in terms of how it achieves this is that these various cards that you turn over throughout the 90 minutes will introduce like places and people and give you reasons to suspect that they might be suspicious. And at this point, as you're turning them over, which one of them is going to end up being consequential hasn't yet been decided. It hasn't been dealt out. It isn't known yet. But that means that, like, no matter what the answer to the narrative happens to be, at some point in the 90 minutes, you will have been prompted to talk about that information and to given a reason why it might be suspicious. And it means that when, cards start turning over that start narrowing it down and bringing it towards one conclusion, there is knowledge that you've spent 90 minutes going, well, that might make sense because of this, and building your own reasons as a group that seem to do a really good job of making that narrative endpoint, whatever you happen to reach, feel satisfying. It is largely just a tool for, like, collaborative storytelling, but I was really impressed at its pacing, and, like, particularly impressed at, like, 90 minutes of talking in a text group chat. I really thought there would be more downtime than there ended up being, in that it really has a very finely tuned sense of, right, we've given you a card that, like, it's going to be 10 minutes before your next clue. Let's give you something that's probably going to take you 10 minutes to talk through. And it really keeps you, like, just barely enough time to have explored that topic before there's something new and you're going somewhere else. As I said, it's not really a video game, other than the fact it's a game played, by typing, playing with other people on phones or computers by typing, but, like, yeah. It reminded me very much of something like playing through Disco Elysium in terms of, I feel like you gave me a really good set of tools to explore role-playing and committing to a character, but it managed to do it in 90 minutes. The other things I want to note that are really neat about it, it's really good at giving, like, character development prompts up front to give you things to work towards. It gives you a lot of potential building blocks before you start the 90 minutes to work out what your relationships to other characters might be, things like that, so that you have something going in. The game's also really good about having, like, built-in structures about consent, as it's such an open-ended narrative, and being like, hey, here's some structure by which you can upfront put certain things off the table, because it's a story about a missing person. You can mechanically make sure that certain things that might be common triggers are just off the table. And if you start playing and someone realizes something is not okay for them, there are really good simple mechanics in place for no questions asked, getting a message removed, and just taking the story in a different direction. And they've even built, like, they recognize the potential need for, like, taking some time to chat afterwards and aftercare, because it's quite an intense experience. It is a very thoughtfully made game that, like, I know it's not strictly Podquisition fare, but also I want people who listen to this show to pay attention to it, because it is a fascinating little thing.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. What about you, Steph? What you been playing?
The other game I've been playing mostly this week is A Plague Tale Requiem. A game I've been very much looking forward to finally getting my hands on.
I installed that.
I have started it.
Plague Tale Innocence, the first game, is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. I absolutely adore that game. Plague Tale Requiem is not a masterpiece. It's got a lot of good stuff going for it. It's mostly good. It's also got several gameplay sections I never want to play again for the rest of my life. And it is very much a game that subtracts through addition. To explain that, I actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. One of the things I like that Innocence does is what I call directed stealth, where the stealth gameplay is very linear. There's usually just one way of doing it. There's a lot of sort of linear tracks through it. But what that does is it allows the game to direct a sense of tension, to time enemy movements and even the score at times in such a way that you always feel like you're just getting out by the skin of your teeth. Now, Plague Tale Requiem doesn't have much of that in the least. They've opened it up. So environments where you need to perform stealth are much wider. There are multiple ways to get through it. Enemies, if disturbed from their movement patterns, will become very unpredictable. You will be able to sneak. You have options for stealth killing and more upfront combat options. Now, make no mistake, this is not a game in which you are fighting per se. If you can't just walk in and kill everything. The enemies are better armored, better armed than you, so it's better to have that. It's there as a last resort. And the game has a sort of leveling system where there are 3 skill tracks, not trees, just tracks, for either using the alchemy stuff a lot, like the fire slingshot and stuff, being more aggressive, or sneaking through everything. And I'm not fond of it. Compared to the first one, I don't like it anywhere near as much. By opening it up, they've taken away that sense of direction. They've taken away tension that the game gets to control. Now it's sort of hit or miss. It's very sort of up to chance whether the stealth sections work out in such a way that you feel like you're just getting out of it. Like the enemies are breathing down your neck. Oh, they are certainly breathing down your neck, but now it's random. It feels random. You can't tell where the enemies are going to go once they're disturbed from their patterns. And there are parts of this game that are so fucking frustrating, where there are so many enemies, and so many of them have helmets now, so they can't actually be dealt with. If you try and deal with one of them, it will alert everyone, and they will just start wandering. And it's not frequent, but there are... So far, I've reached 2. I've gotten past 2 gameplay sections that I never want to play again, that just annoyed me. Because for all of its choice, it also increases the ways that everything can go wrong. And this game is very good at just sort of putting you in positions where you feel completely trapped and that getting out of it is beyond your control. However, the game is also... it's telling so far a very good story. The character development of Amicia it has me sort of on the hook, because it's doing a lot of sort of cycle of revenge stuff that a lot of other video games think is super deep, but they do it the way like The Last of Us Part 2 did it. Whereas this is just very focused on Amicia's character and how her sort of need to lash out at a world as crappy as the one she lives in is negatively affecting her and just causing more harm than good. And it's doing it in a really good way, which is helped by the excellent performances that took some getting used to, because they no longer speak with French accents. They just dropped them. Like Vicky Mitchell did when she stopped sounding like American on a random episode of EastEnders, which is a great reference many people who watched EastEnders in the year 2000 will get. The rat gameplay is still cool. A lot of it is largely the same, but they've really increased the rats. Except for the parts where I feel like I'm standing in the light, but the rats have chewed me anyway. I trust this game less than I do the first. That's one of the main problems. It's not as tight an experience, and things are going wrong in the game as a result of the expansion that just didn't occur in the first one. I shouldn't be stood in the light and afraid that the rats will still bite me, because that's a fundamental part of the gameplay you're meant to trust. But I have had them just like pop into the light just enough to bite me and kill me. And that shouldn't be happening. That's not to say I'm having a universally bad time with it. There are still some really cool environmental puzzles. When the stealth and more combat areas work, they really work. I am pretty engrossed by the story so far, and the character development is really nice. So I am enjoying it. I think it is mostly a good game, but I think its desire to be more mainstream, to be more expansive, has let it down a bit. I feel like at times it is being a little self-conscious about being too niche. And I think that's to its discredit. That's pretty much where I'm at with it so far.
Yeah, I've not played much of it, but I'm already having a similar sense of I like linear crafted experiences where I feel like every moment I enjoy them in the same way that I enjoy a good roller coaster, or like not even like a roller coaster, theme park rides that slowly take you through a very crafted environment.
Yeah.
I know that every moment of this I'm being pointed exactly where I should be at the right time to have a really cool experience. And that's not to say that that's all that I ever want from games, but there are certain games where that feels to their benefit, and I sometimes feel it lacking when, it's missing, which is a shame.
Yeah. I'm just so sick of games that have a hang-up about being quote-unquote too linear. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I said that in some of the very earliest Jimquisition episodes I ever did. Like, well over a decade ago, I was trying to, emphasize that linear doesn't mean bad and open doesn't mean good. But people still treat it like it's a dirty word.
It's one of the reasons, amongst all the many other reasons, that, Beyond Good and Evil 2, I lost all excitement for when I saw that it was being turned into a big open world thing, because I was just with its hundreds of planets, varying sizes, I'm like, no, just let me have a crafted single-player linear experience sometimes. And then, all the other shit happened, but, just let things that are good linear single-player experiences be that sometimes.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
The only other thing I've played this week, I've not got a huge amount to say, but I've been playing version 1.0 of Vampire Survivors.
Oh!
I got a review code, and by the time this episode goes out, that'll be up.
Mm-hmm. As will the bestiary and stage descriptions that James Stephanie Sterling wrote.
I've been refreshing my review build, going Is it there? Is it there? Is it there? I want to read it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll be in time for reviews. I know it will be in time for 1.0's launch.
Yeah, so by the time you hear this, it should be there.
Yeah, and it'll only be in English for a bit.
Yeah.
Because they've got to translate it all, but it will have translations.
But, yeah. Having played the, I don't want to say too much about the other mechanical stuff that's in there in 1.0, other than to say, I really enjoyed some of the chaotic, dramatic nonsense that was built up to. And, I mean, I'll say this, I don't feel like this is too spoilery. I really like that there is a true endless mode in there now. That is a mode that you can certainly set up builds where the only thing that's going to stop your run continuing is, oops, computer really doesn't like how long it's been going and how many thousands of enemies are trying to swarm you at this point. And that's beautiful. That's what I want out of this game.
Yeah.
I want to be able to make that one ridiculously overpowered build that would totally have been oh no, you used the upgraded Clock Lancet and the upgraded Laurel and the death came and one hit killed you. I want to be able to turn that off and go, no, just keep throwing enemies at me and let me watch my Steam Deck fucking try and melt handling what I've done to it. That's what I want, and 1.0 definitely delivers that as an option that now exists.
It is stunning how much, because they've been, drip feeding on the Twitter account.
Yeah.
Lots of sort of changes and additions they're making, up to, in overhauling character sprites to make them more, just less stock asset-y, more animated. Alternate music tracks for basically everything, and some of those are fucking bangers.
Yeah.
So much is being added, just in time for launch. In a game that already iterated and added so much content over the early access period. This is a game I'm proud to be involved with.
You should be fucking proud of being involved in it, particularly I've seen some of the stuff that you've written that's going in there, and I can't fucking wait until that's in the game and I can look at it and go, oh shit, my friend wrote that cool stuff, yay.
I'm very proud of it. I'm very nervous about how it'll go over, but I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of keeping the silly tone of the game with a lot of it, as well as some of just the very background lore that I've sort of popped in, it's not super lore heavy. You get people who are like, oh, why does it need lore? Which, by the way, no one's ever complained until I got involved about a bestiary having monster bios written in it. Who complains about that?
Oh, yeah. No one cares about an easily avoidable piece of codex lore until they don't like the person who's written it.
Like that's just so bad faith is to go, this game doesn't need any writing at all in it. I'm like, fuck off. But yeah, like, I've kept it nice and subtle, but, like, you know, Gallo has a lot to answer for, I'll say that much.
You've really had me chuckling with some of the stuff you've sent, and I'm really excited that, like, I'm going to be able to look at that and go, hey, not only was this one of my favourite games I played this year, but that's my friend did that, yeah.
And there's only one bestiary entry that I think is going to be controversial.
Oh.
You both know what it is.
Oh, yeah. No, trust me. I understand the nerves, but also, fuck it, they can't stop you. No one can stop you.
She gives big trans energy. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, look, people were saying it when she was released. Trans people have been saying it. You're just agreeing with the known consensus.
Anyone can be a sassy witch if they want to be. That's the message of the day. But yeah, I'm very proud of it. I've made sure that I've got everything unlocked in the previous versions before the official launch of... Like, I've got a beta version that I've been able to see my stuff in, and it's fucking surreal. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it finally coming out in full. It's been such a good game all year in early access. Like, we've all gushed about it. I gushed about it before I got involved with it. Yeah. Obviously, I realise that anything I say beyond this point is biased because I'm, involved, but...
Wait, what? That's how this works?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Thank God I've only ever shit on things I'm involved in.
That's true, actually.
I mean, look, when someone gushes about a thing and then works on said thing and then continues to gush about it afterwards, like, yeah, the caveat needs to be there, but also, like, you must have played a long con to, like, if you were pretending to like it, to work on it to pretend to like it some more.
Plus, this game is so close to universally beloved that, like, yeah, I'm really making up that I like it. Sure, Jan. No one's accused me of that, but, I
getcha.
People love to try and do those things.
Yeah.
So I'm just, there is that caveat, but the game's so fucking good. It's just so fucking good.
It is. Anyone else played anything else this week?
Oh, Steph.
Oh, hello.
Steph did. Steph played something. Now that we've eaten our dinner, it's time to eat dessert.
Pudding time! So who remembers Eat Led, The Return of Matt Hazard?
I do.
I do.
Yeah.
I got a copy in my closet.
I didn't remember it as well as I thought I did.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because don't remember it being that bad. It wasn't a good game.
No.
I always knew that. I played it back in the day, and my memory is of thinking it was fairly mediocre from a gameplay standpoint, but quite charming with the concept. It's neither. It's way worse than mediocre, and it's not charming in the least. I played a bit of it, because I've been doing that thing where I've just been getting some, like, backwards compatible 360 games for nostalgia.
Right.
And thought, I remember being a bit charmed by that. That'll be something to do. And then I streamed it for 3 hours. And I don't know why I kept doing it. I could have just put on Vampire Survivors or something. I could have played anything else. But I stuck with it for 3 hours and I'm not playing it again. It's so bad. Like, it's unbearably bad. It's a cover-based shooter where the cover doesn't work. Like, by design, it gets shot to the point where it glitches out and disappears. But even when you're behind it, it doesn't work. And the enemy AI just doesn't, like, obey the same sort of belief in the cover system that you're supposed to. So they'll swarm you. Environments are designed so that you can't actually use the cover, but you die in a couple of shots. It's so bullshit. It's full of repetitive, awful sequences like QTE fighting sections, because of course it's got QTEs, it was the late 2000s. It's got awful sniping sections. Its core concept of it, you're a video game protagonist and that's who the character is. They live inside a video game. Nothing's done with it. It's just an excuse to have no artistic cohesion with the enemies. Like, it'll just throw in zombies and cowboys.
Well, no, it's also a reason for, like, glitchy, colourful particle effects when you shoot people.
Well, there's that too, yeah. It's a game that has the sheer nerve to parody other video games while being the worst example of any of the genres it's making fun of. And you can't do that. You can't be one of the worst examples of a genre you're making fun of.
It's a 360 game that, like, visually reminds me of Red Steel on the Wii.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it's got that sort of, like, generic, slightly blurry quality to it. I remember the AI in it just having a real propensity for sprint forward and then awkwardly stand there for a second, like,
yeah.
I forgot what I was doing. What was I doing? Oh, yes, I was shooting you.
Oh, yeah, there's no real AI to speak of. They just sort of mindlessly run at you and just, like, shoot, stand there, shoot.
Yeah, it tends to be more a matter of, like, just getting overwhelmed by enemies more than them being strategic.
Whenever it tries something different, which is the same shooty bullshit, but with, like, something annoying added, it drags on far too long.
Mm-hmm.
The actual gameplay, when it's not being, like, utterly infuriating, is just boring. Like, it is, like, the most dreary version of a cover shooter. Repetitive. You get various weaponry, but, like, they're all useless except your starting pistol. Because with that, you can just hide behind something, mostly, if they're not rushing you. Hide behind something, line the reticle up to their head, and then just pop up and shoot their head and they die. Anything else is awful. The shotgun is useless unless you walk up to them, which by that point you might as well initiate the hilariously awfully animated melee attack, which will kill them far quicker. Any other gun, the kickback, like there's SMGs and assault rifles, but the recoil is so bad, like you'll get a migraine if you stare at the screen for too long. You can't get a beat on anything with it. They're slow to aim, and when you shoot, the recoil is dreadful. And every section is drawn out way too long. There are too many sniping sections. There's a bit where a helicopter is shooting at you from outside a building, and you'll just be chewed to death if you stand in front of it, but the cover that you need to hide from enemies is often in front of it, and that goes on ways. Everything drags out. Will Arnett does the voice of Matt Hazard.
Mm-hmm.
This was pre-BoJack, which is interesting.
And Neil Patrick Harris is the voice of the villain in it. Yeah. I wonder where the money went.
Yeah. It's so ugly. The gameplay is so atrocious. It's so horrible to play. Like, this is one of them games where it's not just bad. It's similar to Scorn in that regard, in that it's almost physically unpleasant.
Yeah.
Like, my skin crawls because it's just on a tactile level uncomfortable to play. It makes me feel bad when I play it. And that was one of the most excruciating live streams I ever had.
Oh, you live streamed it? Oh, I didn't know that.
I live streamed it 3 hours.
Oh my god.
It was horrible.
Oh my god.
Mate, Redneck Tombury bounced.
Yeah.
Was watching and just said, "Oh god, I've seen enough, I'm going."
Yeah.
Like, it was that bad. There's nothing fun about it. It's a crime that they decided to, like, they tried to have some smart-ass satirical concept and did nothing with it. You can't just put on a few pixely effects when a character dies and call it a day. It does less than nothing with its concept, because any attempt at satire is undermined by how bad it is. So it goes into negative figures with its very idea.
I think they recognized pretty well that they had a great concept and could not execute on the concept in this product.
Yeah.
Because they stuck with Matt Hazard for a little while. Like, there are other Matt Hazard games.
I think there's one other game. It's a side-scroller called Bloodbath and Beyond, which I never played.
And I think I did, and I think it was crap too, ultimately.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, this is from D3 Publisher. They published this. The Onechambra people. Like, and it's at that level of quality, except Onechambra is at least charming in its stupidity. This is offensive in its cynicism.
Yeah.
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 It's not good.
I don't know that I could offer any defense of it, and yet there's still something, because I know I will feel exactly the same way you did when I inevitably now go back and replay this.
I don't know how I got through it. How did we get through this back in the day?
I don't know, but I know I finished it. I remember, and I remember the last area being so infuriating that I couldn't believe I'd finished it then. So
yeah,
one of the things about it too, I think what made it almost feel acceptable at the time is that it was quite clearly even then a budget shooter.
Yeah.
Right? And we were putting it in the context of a budget shooter of its day. But if you want to talk about something that will age like milk, it's already underwhelming mechanical implementation of something that then gets iterated on and improved in fast ways later.
I think it's because I've seen so much better.
Yeah.
And I've also seen bad enough that it's eroded my patience over the God, how many years was this? 13 or so years old. Like, however long it was, like, I've got less patience and higher standards than this.
Yep.
It's just unpleasant. And I can't keep doing it. I'm glad. I was so happy when that stream was done, where I was like, okay, I have made it worth getting again because I did that.
Right.
I won't feel bad about never playing it again now.
Yeah. So, shall we get into some news?
Tell you what, we can do.
We sure got some of it this week.
We sure do.
Let's start with the big one that there are multiple aspects of to talk about, and we'll get through them all in stages. Clearly, the big video game news of the week this week was when Helena Taylor, the original voice actress for Bayonetta in the Bayonetta games, posted a video on Twitter addressing the fact that she is not voicing the character in the third game. Originally, the official statement from Platinum Games had been that she hadn't come back to Bayonetta 3 because of scheduling conflicts, which Helena Taylor denied. Her claim, originally made, is that she was offered $4,000 and no residuals total to voice the character in Bayonetta 3, and she requested a boycott of the game by fans. This started a larger conversation, and it is an important conversation to have about Helena Taylor's situation, but also more generally about the industry, about underpayment of voice actors in the video game industry. We had examples of, for example, someone who voiced the character of Rivali in Breath of the Wild only being paid, I believe, total $3,000, no residuals, for his involvement on that game. A lot of voice actors came out to go, yeah, what Helena Taylor is saying honestly doesn't fucking surprise me to hear. The video game industry has a huge problem with underpaying voice actors. Now, from there, it is important to address that there has been a follow-up report from Bloomberg, which I don't think should invalidate the wider discussion of...
Well, that's my fear, is the sheer muddiness and the fact that this is now all about the drama of who's lying. It undermines so many valid points that voice actors deserve residuals, voice actors deserve better pay, voice actors... The amount of money that their involvement brings to companies. Like,
yeah,
voice actors would have made millions if it was TV, radio, music. Any other entertainment industry pays its performers to such a superior degree that it is beyond insulting. And we don't get to talk about that now.
Yeah, well, and this is why I want to very quickly get the report from Bloomberg out the way and then get back to this conversation, because I don't want this to dominate what we talk about today. There has been a report from Bloomberg that has been backed up by a couple of places. Jason Schreier's been talking about it, Stephen Toledo, VG247, have all reported that Helena Taylor has potentially, allegedly, been misleading about how little she was offered to play the role. To be clear, she was still criminally under-offered for the role. She was allegedly offered $15,000 and not the $4,000 that she claims. That said, she did still only get paid $15,000, or only get offered $15,000 no residuals, which would still be criminally underpaying her compared to other industries.
Yeah, I think where the confusion came in is that she said $4,000, and that was the rate per session, and there were supposed to be, I think, 5 sessions, so I think the total was $20,000. That's what I'd read in Bloomberg, I think. But the problem is it's muddy, and it doesn't actually matter how much she was offered.
No.
Now, it's unfortunate that this either error or intent to make it maximize the sense of outrage exists, because it sets her up as a pretty poor example of someone that we should be listening to. It establishes an opportunity to doubt.
We certainly shouldn't be listening to her opinion on trans rights.
And then there's that too. That's the other bit of it.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say, is she follows a lot of not very trans-positive people, a lot of racists, a lot of right-wing Christian conservatives, but, none of those facts should take away from the fact.
No.
Right. I wish we had a better representation of what this was.
It's like that parody headline, "The worst person you know just made a good point."
Yep.
It's that kind of thing. It's it would be better if anyone else was making these points, but these points have been made for over a decade.
Yeah.
The earliest one I remember is one I mentioned in the Jimquisition, 2008. Michael Hollick, the voice of Nico Bellic in Grand Theft Auto 4.
Mm-hmm.
He got $100,000 for the voicing a lot of dialogue that game.
Yeah.
No residuals. When you look at how much money that game made, he would have been a millionaire off the back of it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even nasty about it. His point, and it still stands, is the union should have negotiated better. And that was a point made 14 years ago. In 2016, we had a voice actors strike, Performance Matters, and we're still dealing with this. The union is still not giving voice actors the kind of respect that other performers get. That is a real issue.
And it's a complicated, I've found it really complicated to work out where my feelings sit on this, because I something I've been mulling over, and I think you said really well on the Jimquisition this week, was the situation around the request for a boycott here is a complicated one, in that if you, as you said, if you're going to boycott every video game that underpays its voice actors, you're probably going to have to boycott every AAA video game that exists.
Yes.
Because this is an endemic issue to the industry. And it sucks that the situation around Helena Taylor has muddied that conversation, because the core conversation is really important, even if, on an individual level, I don't necessarily like the thought of a bunch of money going to a person who seems to hold some turf views, and I think that she's really shot herself in the foot on the messaging. Doesn't change the fact that voice actors are talent that deserve to be paid proper residuals, and that our industry needs to treat them as the talent they are.
Yeah, I don't think that just because this person seems like they might be an asshole, everyone else who does their job deserves to not get paid. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Nor do they deserve harassment.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, leave these people alone.
The amount of shit people have been giving Jennifer Hale for, voicing Bayonetta instead. The worst thing she did was be an actor and take an acting job. Fuck off.
Yeah.
The gaming community still, after all these years, has such an issue with people who are just looking for an excuse to be a cunt. It's not helping.
Imagine thinking that Jennifer Hale found out what had been offered and the circumstances surrounding it and was like, well, fuck her, I'm taking this. That's not how it went. She was offered a job, she took a job.
Yeah.
Leave her alone.
Yeah. And I do want to, touch on one other aspect of this where, let's talk briefly about Hideki Kamiya. I don't want to linger on him.
Oh, must we?
I'm going to say two things, and I think that they can both simultaneously be true. He's an absolute fucker who completely handled this like a absolute unprofessional infant screaming at the wall, and
as is his wont. This is not,
yeah, as is his wont.
He made it worse.
But I think it is also fair to acknowledge his initial response to this, in which he basically boiled down to saying Helena Taylor is lying. There may have been some truth to, potentially more than initially people assumed.
Sure.
And I don't think that justifies his actions.
He can be pissed about that, but his response, as well as being, like, pathetically unprofessional, was stupid. Like, he made himself so unsympathetic. Like, if you've been lied about, like, the worst thing you want to do is, like, be a total twat to everyone.
Yes. Like, I feel like there is a way in which he could have, like, gone, I know that she's lying. I will give it a second. Maybe even go fucking talk to the press about the fact that you know, there are ways that you, Kamiya, could have much more sensibly handled that if that was what you were feeling and you wanted to talk about it, rather than what you did.
It's his right to process it however he'd like to do that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he made himself look a right tit.
Yes. Now, in terms of, like, wanting to move this conversation away from some of the stuff about Helena Taylor specifically, I do want to point to a really good piece on The Guardian by Keza MacDonald called An Insult. Video game voice actors speak out to demand fair pay. I also want to point towards a piece over on Eurogamer called Bayonetta 3 voice actress Jennifer Hale asks fans to be kinder following abuse. The Guardian piece goes into a lot more, like, in-depth interviews with voice actors about this problem. The latter piece on Eurogamer largely compiles social media statements from voice actors about this topic, both of which are really good starting points for if you want to see who else in the industry is talking about this and keep thinking about this story in a way that doesn't necessarily have to be attached to Helena Taylor as a figurehead of it. But yeah, it is a mess of a story, and one that needed to be touched on up top because there wasn't really any getting around it. It's really tiring to like video games.
Mm-hmm.
Another story from a couple of weeks back that we didn't touch on at the time, I didn't put it on the topic list because I wanted to wait until there was more information. I didn't want to rush putting it on here. TwitchCon happened a couple of weeks ago, and a Twitch streamer broke her back in two places taking part in an event at TwitchCon where there was a foam, like a big foam pit, and Twitch streamers were encouraged to do sort of gladiator-esque activities on standing platforms, and she assumed that big foam pit was for landing in and was a safe place to land, jumped into the foam pit, not realizing it was very shallow and concrete at the bottom. The story involves Adriana Chechik, who is okay. She is having to do some major recovery to learn how to walk again. It is a very serious injury, and the main reason why it's important to talk about it is because inevitably this is going to be a story that comes back up. The question is who the blame for this incident is going to end up pointed at. The foam pit stand was sponsored by Lenovo. It was at TwitchCon. There's a few companies that potentially could be pointed to as responsible for this pit that occurred, but right now there is the lingering issue of someone got very seriously injured at TwitchCon in an official event, and this is likely to either result in a lawsuit at some point against Twitch or Lenovo. So that is a situation that happened that will probably be circling back around at some point in the future. We got some other stories. You know how Stadia died really recently? Because apparently no one wanted streamed video games.
Yes. Haha.
Yeah? That's not stopping new people trying to get into the game. Netflix is seriously exploring its own cloud gaming offering.
I have more faith in Netflix's ability to accomplish this than I do Google's.
I genuinely do, and I wanted to talk about this, because, like, I think I might... look, I think this might do well, for the same reason that, like, I use Xbox cloud gaming, but I never touched Stadia.
Yeah.
If you take people who already have a subscription to your online service and offer this as an additional value add, I think people will use it.
Yep.
I think if you offer it as its own standalone thing where you have to buy into just it on its own, it's not going to work. And I think that's why Netflix really has a good chance of doing better than Google at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm pretty sure they would have no difficulty getting it on any device.
Yeah.
That's capable, and just anything. So, I mean, it's...
Well, that's the thing. Like, they already have Netflix apps built into TVs. They have Netflix apps on whatever thing it is you want. If you can get that to interface with a controller, if, whatever TV that's got the Netflix app will Bluetooth connect to a controller, done.
Yep.
Use your existing controller, you're there. No additional payment, so why not try it? I think they're in a much better position to do it as a thing. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but I feel like it's got a better chance of surviving than Google.
Netflix can go fuck itself, though.
Well, sure.
Oh yeah, no.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Netflix can go fuck itself, but also I feel like this is going to have more of a chance of living than Stadia did.
Oh yeah, they've got a better shot of it than Google.
Yeah. We got some more information about Call of Duty and the having to have a contract phone to play the game online situation. They're not backing down from it. Ish. You are only going to need that text verification on PC. It won't be required on console.
Right, because if you're on console, you're already connected in with one of the major networks. You have an account. That's already going to be verified. They don't need it there.
Well, I feel like it's not even necessarily that. I think it's like, to my understanding, games you play online can read your unique console ID. And that is a very bannable thing where your console just cannot play that game anymore.
Sure.
Like, that tech has existed for a while. It isn't needed. And, it's still a shitty situation, but, at least one area isn't being impacted by it. But, Activision really doesn't want to give this up, no matter how many times they get pushed back for it. Oh, we got some good news. We got some good news about unions. Blizzard's Diablo team, Blizzard Albany, their QA staff have won the right to unionize.
Good for them. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yep. The more it happens, the better.
That's literally how it works.
Yep.
Yeah. They're getting ballots sent out as early as next week. By mid-November, we should have a result, but we're likely to have another Activision QA team unionizing within the next month. Activision Blizzard, surprising no one, had been trying to prevent them from unionizing. They made the claim previously that, this should be a decision made by a larger group of employees at the Albany studio and not just the testing team, which, yeah, unionize all of them, but,
yeah.
if just a few of them want to unionize, fucking let them. But the National Labour Relations Board disagreed and said, no, fucking let them vote.
Well, they want management to be able to vote and...
Yeah, right. So that's some positive progress there. We also have some other news about QA and unionization. Do you remember we talked a while back about the fact that there was a Nintendo of America QA staff member who got fired from Nintendo of America and was trying to sue them?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, we didn't know much about the lawsuit, but what we did know was that it involved obstruction of unionization efforts was one of the claims.
Yeah.
So we now know how that's played out. That member of staff has received a $26,000 settlement, and Nintendo of America must now display notices in their offices that explicitly state they will not fire staff for union discussions.
Oh.
Which sure makes it sound like they were firing people for discussing unions.
I mean, if you have to promise people that you won't do something...
Yeah.
There might be some fire at the end of that smoke.
Yeah. So my favourite bit of this is the notice, we have specifics. The words will not have to be in block capital letters.
Oh, God.
So they have to have notices in public areas in the company that say, will not be fired or stopped from discussing unions.
Brilliant.
They gotta put it big and bold. You have the right to talk about a union, and we will not stop you from talking about a union. We will not fire you because you exercise your right to raise issues and complaints. Yeah, the more you go into this, it's like, what were you doing previously that you have to put all these in here? Yeah, at the time, Nintendo claimed that they fired him for disclosing confidential information and for no other reason. And there is no evidence here that it was for other reasons, but it sure seems like it was about him discussing unions. So, that's fun.
Yeah.
We got a couple of last ones that we can rattle through. I've saved a nice one for last. Quick one. I have no care about Apex Legends because fucking EA grumble. EA's introducing a trans character as a playable character. The only reason I bring this up is because I genuinely am surprised that they beat Overwatch to the punch.
Yeah.
I really for years thought Overwatch was going to be the first one to try and do playable trans character in big multiplayer online shooter.
To Apex's credit, they launched with a non-binary character as well.
Yep.
They did go with the old non-binary trope of character in a mask, but, you know.
Yeah. And, like, I'll say for this trans woman character, she's voiced by a trans woman, which is cool.
That's always proper.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, credit where credit is due. Like, I was one of the big truthers that, like, as much as I fucking hate Activision Blizzard, I really thought they were going to do it with Zarya in Season 1 of Overwatch. Her gun shoots the fucking trans pride flag colours. I really thought they were going to do it. Interesting, just like little tidbit, a leaked pilot for a American Kingdom Hearts TV show got placed online recently. It is an interesting watch, if a little rough around the edges, and I'm not going to say it's good, but it is an interesting insight into something that was pitched around and never went anywhere. Yeah. And last, Nintendo's trying to have less boobs on the eShop.
What?
Oh.
Nintendo wants less boobs. They're anti-boob.
This past year, there's been a lot of boobs on the eShop.
There really has.
Yeah, if they didn't want so many boobs, they really should have done something about this by now, I would think.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, there's been, like, a real, like, influx of, here's a puzzle game on Switch, and if you do the puzzle, you see tits.
Yeah. It's basically like the amount... It's similar to the sheer volume of hentai puzzle games that came to Steam once they opened the floodgates, but it stopped short of being outright hentai. But it's the same influx of rather cheap puzzle games for the same cynical reason.
Yeah.
And it's really just there are entire websites where you can look at hentai. Like, I don't know why you want to pay money to hide the hentai behind a shitty puzzle.
Okay, but these hentai artists, they need to make money.
How many of these games are made by actual hentai artists?
Probably not enough.
That's my question. How many were just sort of taken from, like, Rule 34 sites?
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
Yeah. The Switch has a YouTube app. Just go on the YouTube app and search boobs. Nintendo, you can't stop them doing that.
There is so much to wank about. Like, you can't. You look at all the things that you could wank about, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't wank over everything.
No.
From the moment you start wanking to the moment you die. You don't. Oh, God. Like, I'm not saying don't pay for porn, right?
No, you should.
Go for it. Like, support that content. But to hide the porn behind a shit puzzle, it's... I don't understand it, although I think Scorn would be better if the sliding block puzzle did have some anime girl with tits hanging out, like, behind it.
Yeah. So what we've been told is that apparently outright censored nudes won't be allowed anymore.
Only the uncensored nudes from now on.
Yeah, and we also know that a game called Hot Tentacles Shoot won't be coming to Switch anymore because they were told that obscene. I know, right?
Hot Tentacle Shoot, huh?
Yeah, obscene content could damage the brand and infringe its policies.
Oh, I've got to look that up. This is a minefield.
Do you want a description? I can tell you about Hot Tentacle Shoot or Hot Shoot Tentacles. Sorry, I'm seeing it written two ways in the article I'm looking at here on VG247.
Is it Hot Tentacle Shooter?
I've seen it written as Hot Shoot Tentacles or Hot Tentacles Shoot. But it's not on Switch.
Yeah.
Because, it's not allowed on Switch. It is apparently an 80s style shoot 'em up, where defeating bosses essentially removes tentacles that are covering up images of scantily clad women.
Oh my, the screenshots are gold. The screenshots are amazing.
Did you work out which way round the words are?
It's Hot Tentacles Shooter.
Yeah, I see it now on... Oh, no, it's not on Steam? Oh, no, because I have to be logged in to see it on Steam.
You gotta be logged in. Hang on, I'm logged in on the app. Here we go.
Oh, I can see it on PlayStation, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen some screenshots. They look incredible. I'm definitely reviewing this. I am in on this.
I'm logging in. I'm being denied the Hot Tentacles.
Hot Tentacles is a formidable 80s style shooter with a pixel art modern and irresistible.
Modern and irresistible?
Uh-huh. If you get it on Steam, I think you get the full frontal as well.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a screenshot. Oh, that's tits and vag.
Can I just say, like, the piece of key art with the logo, like, the art's good.
Honestly, the pixel art is good.
Oh, wow.
There's some really nice pixel art. Yeah, that pixel art's fucking great.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like some like commoner garden hentai JPEG. Like this is actual good pixel art of
That's
tits.
good pixel art.
Are we all gonna come around now to Hot Tentacle Shooter?
I mean, we're all gonna come.
I mean, for $4.99, I'm buying it and playing it before next week.
I'm getting it.
Yeah,
I'm getting this.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, it's already on Steam.
This might be the one thing we've all played.
I'm downloading it. I'm downloading it literally as we speak.
Yeah. It's marked as adults only. The third screenshot on the Steam page. Yeah,
It's
there's tits and vagina out.
Alright, it's downloaded. I've got it.
Oh shit.
Right, I know what I'm doing for the rest of the day.
See, I saved us a good one for the end.
This is delicious.
Look forward to our reviews next week, probably.
Oh, this is brilliant.
More like this orc massage. Okay, I'm out.
Oh no, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in too deep now. So next week, Hot Tentacle Shooter. Week after that, orc massage.
Oh god. Okay.
Stephanie's Porny Corner.
It's been a while since I've talked about a porn game on here.
It's got 4 good reviews.
I mean, that is a number of good reviews.
Mostly positive. Come on.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So now that I am suitably lubed, I am ready to hear about all of the content that you might have outside of that may or may not also include tentacles being removed to show big pixelated tits. I don't know, Laura. What have you got for us?
You can find all the stuff I do at Laura K. Buzz all over the internet. Every Friday I upload episodes of Accessibility, which is about accessibility in video games. There's like a big full episode about Stories of Blossom going up this week. Go give it a watch. I talk specifically about like where it succeeds at audio descriptions compared to The Last of Us Part 1. Yeah, just go check out Laura K. Buzz everywhere. And like, if you want to support the stuff I do, go to Patreon, patreon.com/Laura K. Buzz. Like, literally, that is the thing that pays my bills. As little as $1 a month keeps the lights on. Super appreciated. What about you, Conrad?
I just watched the trailer for Orc Massage.
Yeah, you did.
Oh god. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Conrad Zimmerman. You can hang out with me on Twitch, where I will never play Orc Massage. At twitch.tv/that Conrad Zimmerman. Oh, did you start watching the trailer for Orc Massage, Steph?
Of course I fucking did.
Yeah. You buy anti-capitalist propaganda from me at pinfultruth.com, audiobooks at conradreads.com, and everything I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. You know who else has a Patreon? James Stephanie Sterling.
Patreon.com/Jimquisition. That supports this, that, and the other. The Jimquisition video series, this podcast, and of course now the return of video game reviews. She's sucking his cock. Oh, right up there. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they are going for it.
I told you.
Fucking get that green dick. Yes, the return of video game reviews that may or may not include Orc Massage. We've got Disney Dreamlight Valley up. We've got Scorn. My next review will most likely be A Plague Tale Requiem. I'm going to try and do many of the big ones, obviously not Activision or Ubisoft games. because of how abusive and horrible those companies are. But yeah, there's that. I stream on Mondays and Wednesdays, usually. And then maybe sometimes at the weekend.
Why do 2 of my friends already have Orc Massage?
Yeah.
Because you know the right people. I think we know the same people as well. Yeah, 2 friends. Twitch TV/Jim Sterling is where you can see my stuff there. Obviously, Vampire Survivors will probably be out by the time this is live.
I believe it's due to go live on Steam at exactly the same time as this episode goes up.
My writing will be in the game. I've written the stage descriptions and the full bestiary for that game. I like to think of my bestiary as part way between Dark Souls lore and the Pokedex. I'm very pleased with it. I hope you enjoy it. And my current wrestling dates are November 4th in Leeds, True Grit Wrestling, November 12th, Newcastle, Avant-Garde Wrestling, November 20th, Leicester, Wrestling Resurgence, and we should hopefully have news on the next Spectrum Wrestling date very soon. That's that. Thank you all so much. I've got a tentacle shooter to play.
Mm-hmm.
Bye!
Bye.
Bye.